Hello for joining our clubhouse session today. The topic for today is role of PA in SDLC. We have Mansi with us. Mansi is from Pune and she is working with Barclays as a lead business analyst. She is having more than 12 years of experience and his experience is mainly in banking domain. And she has worked across various portfolios like retail banking, mortgages, financial crime, remediation, and other areas within banking domain. She is also a BA trainer and gives a BA training offline apart from her regular commitment. So thanks, Mansi, for joining us today and welcome to our clubhouse.
Thanks, Shipra. Thanks for the introduction. And yeah, so we are good to start.
Yeah. So, Mansi, how we are going to do the session is that your session will be
Mm.
having different parts, right? So we'll talk about one part and we'll give a chance to the audience to ask any questions regarding that part, and then we'll move over to the next one. Yeah.
Okay, okay, fine. That suits me. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Over to you, Mansi.
Yeah, okay. Hello, everyone. So my topic for today is role of BA in a software development life cycle. So these days, when I say a software development life cycle, we have been focusing on working in the waterfall ways of working, and now mostly all of the projects are working in an agile fashion. However, I would like to touch base upon the waterfall model and the roles and responsibilities of BA across each cycle, and I will be finishing this off with how it translates into an agile world and what roles and responsibilities a PA holds across it. So hope this is fine with everyone.
Yeah, Mansi.
Yeah. Okay. So to start with, in a basic software development life cycle, maybe I'll take an example today just to explain everything in detail. So first is obviously the planning and initiation phase. So I mean, what do we want to build? That's the very first question. What project are we interested in? Are we supposed to build something from scratch, or are we just enhancing few requirements in a legacy application? So these are the multiple questions which arise generally. So the BA's role comes into play where he needs to identify these needs. He needs to connect with the right set of audience, maybe the business stakeholders or the project managers, that or the customers if it's a end user facing application. Okay, what's the business need in general? So there are, I mean, there are ways and means to do it. If you already have an existing application and you intend to change it to a brand new application with the latest technologies, then maybe you will have to work on what's the as is model is like. Understand, okay, what are my stakeholders, whom I'm going to connect with, understand what are the pain points or problem areas. So and maybe chalk out a general plan or a project plan that okay, I my end goal is X for this particular project, and I need to work around this, and maybe try and understand the requirements. So basically, planning and initiation phase is just to understand and define the objectives in general. So if I work in a waterfall kind of model, maybe uh, there is a concept called business requirement documentation. So BRDs are created out of it. So far, any questions? Or I can move on to the next phase, which is the analysis phase.
Yeah, request all to ask any questions, yeah, to make the
Yeah.
session more interactive. You can send
Yeah.
me a request and I'll accept it. Then you can
Mani, if I heard you,
yeah, there.
Mansi, if I heard you right, you said in the initiation stage we are creating BRD. Is that?
Yeah, it's basically a planning and initiation phase, and the output of all these things is a general high level business document on what I need to do.
Uh,
You're on mute.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I still heard BRD. Are we not discussing? Is it not the business the scope document and output of initiation and planning?
Yeah, maybe it could be termed differently in different organizations. It could be a business document, and then in the agile methodologies, it is more of a product vision or a product delta or an architecture vision. So there are different names and terminologies to it. But yeah, the main concept of having the planning or understanding, okay, why do we want to do a specific project is to understand the goals and objectives for it. And I may not, I mean, specify a certain document around it if it is confusing. Is that okay?
Okay, with you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Okay. Any more questions from anyone?
Yeah, Mansi. So others have also requested to join in. So,
Okay.
Sarvean,
Okay.
Sarvean.
Yeah, Shipra. Nothing. Just I requested to just have that particular. Whenever it's being required, I will just pick it up, raise the query. Thanks
Mhm.
for the same. Yeah.
Sure. Is that Rishi?
Yeah, hi. Actually, this is Kunal here. So this is my like Twitter account with a different name.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, Kunal.
Kunal Gupta here.
Yeah, Kunal.
Yeah. So primarily my question was around while getting those requirement from business, right? Which method you choose and which one do you prefer usually, and what is the reason behind it? So there might be certain reasoning around which type of gathering requirement gathering method you choose, right?
Okay. Yeah. So, Kunal, maybe I'll touch base upon this in my next factor, which is more over the analysis phase, and which is, I think, the BA's roles and responsibilities are predominant in this particular aspect, where I would talk more about, okay, how do I collect the requirements? What kind of methods do we use, if that's okay?
Yeah, sure. No worries.
Yeah. Any other questions so far?
Yeah, so I think Jay is having some confusion around BRD part because we have heard that BRD is mainly analysis output, right? So
Yeah.
let me explain a bit more to
Yeah.
Jay. So as part of planning, okay, we have to agree on what is the scope of the project,
Yeah.
right? So how can we get the scopes? We can get the scope only when we note down the business requirements. So when we are saying business requirement document, it is a very, very, very high level document
Yeah.
which will say that okay, these are my business requirements that are required to be met, and these are the integrations that will happen, these are the modules that we will be touching upon. It's basically a scope, defining the scope of the project, and that scope is captured in the form of business requirements. So that's why a business requirement document is
Yeah, yeah.
created.
Yeah.
Does that clarify? Jay?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, and we will dig down into those individual areas in
Yes, yes, with you. Thank you,
Yeah.
Shipra.
in the analysis phase later. Yeah.
Yeah. Correct. Thanks, Shifra, for maybe clarifying a bit more on that particular aspect. Should I move ahead or maybe any more questions on this particular piece?
Yeah, I think we should go next. Yeah.
Okay, so once I understand, okay, what is my end goal or maybe what is my business goal to work on a certain project, this entire software development moves into the design, into the analysis phase. So analysis phase is basically where I actually go and understand the requirements. Now I actually have to sit with the stakeholders, understand the stakeholders that okay, what I need to do, why I need to do so. And I think, as Kunal rightly mentioned, there are different ways and means in which we can collate these requirements. So there are certain elicitation techniques which could be used in general for requirement gathering part of it. Now, this requirement gathering aspect is. I would say it is subjective. It is subjective to the kind of work you are doing, kind of project you are aligned to. Uh, in certain cases it may be the case you are just giving minor enhancements to a existing application which is ongoing. In certain cases you are maybe supposed to work on revamping the entire project and building something new from scratch, or at times it could be just a proof of concept where you're just trying to explore something, so the requirements are different in that case. So there are multiple elicitation techniques which a BA could use, but I would say it depends on what is your audience, what kind of stakeholders are involved. Is it a varied audience which you are having? So I guess the first or basic aspect is to identify your stakeholders, At times it could be the business users, it could be the customers, it could be the project managers, or it could be the business owners as well, who are your I would say decision makers. When you say a requirement, I guess they would be the final decision makers in it. So from an elicitation perspective, you could have brainstorming sessions with them. Then there could be focus group sessions. When I say focus group, it is basically I have a certain set of audience with me where I would pick up a topic and then just focus on brainstorming around those ideas or areas. Uh, Other aspect of it, as I said, that if it is an existing application, I should have a good documentation around it. Maybe I can go and explore that documentation and then develop the requirements on top of that. So that could be a case. There could be different workshops where I could have the technology team as well with me, just to explore the technical feasibility options as well there and then. That okay, if business proposes certain x idea, that in my mobile application I want such and such feature, and if I have a technology team around, maybe I could there and then comment and say, okay, that's possible, that's not possible. So those kind of requirement workshops are also there. So there are multiple ways and means to do this requirement elicitation. So once my requirement are finalized, maybe the output of it is to understand, okay, what's my functional aspect of it and what is the non-functional aspect of it. So in a regular waterfall model, I could come up with functional requirement documents which are quite elaborate and detailed in terms of documenting how a particular functionality should work, how it should look, what are the wireframes, designs, etc. And the non-functional aspect of it moreover talks upon, okay, what are my base requirements. For example, uh, if I want to run my application on a particular system, uh, as Shipra mentioned, I'm working for a bank. So basically, I need to understand, if I'm building up a new application for my bank users, I need to understand, okay, do they have the base level configurations on their machines to run my application? So that's a non-functional requirement. I mean, do they have that certain amount of RAM which is already available? Will my application be supported in that application? Do they need certain version of any framework? So all these are non-functional requirements. So the main part of this analysis is to understand, okay, what's my requirement, what are the functional aspects of it, what are the non-functional aspects of it, and document all these requirements, and maybe circulate and communicated this back to stakeholders, take a formal approval from them that okay, are they happy with what we are trying to design over here. So all this is about the analysis phase of it. And just a note, I have not touched base upon what we actually do in an agile way of working. I'm still focused on the waterfall ways of working, so maybe I'll cover that at the end of it. But any questions so far on the analysis phase?
Any questions from anyone? Yeah, and to add to what Mansi just suggested, right? So analysis phase is the bread and butter of a BA. This is
Yeah.
main phase where a BA is involved. In certain projects, what might happen is that, after you have written the stories and after you are done with the analysis phase, they'll move you out of the project. They'll be like, one will have 50% availability of one BA to support the further phases, and you work on something else. So that is also quite a
Yeah.
possibility. So that's
Uh,
the main phase for a BD. Yeah.
yeah. Mansi, could you please elaborate on the normally you specified on the waterfall model and the analysis on that particular stage? So waterfall model we need to go or we need to move with the agile one. So did it depend upon the starting of that particularly the project of the SDLC, or
Yeah.
in the mid also we can decide it out, okay, how we can move ahead?
I think this should be decided during the planning phase in general, because if you see, a waterfall method is moreover a plan driven approach. I always have a plan in waterfall. I mean, I'm going sequentially A, B, C, and D and E, and then F is my final output, something like that. So I know I'll do the planning, I'll do the analysis, I'll move to the design, then the development test, and after that, I'm ready for implementation or maybe deploying it and releasing that application. But this depends. I mean, what kind of project I have. If I have a very clear set of requirements with me, I guess waterfall is good, great. But if you have a very big project, it's a long running one, and moreover, you are not very clear at the start of it that how this would unfold, then I think we should go to the agile model of it, because agile is moreover a change driven approach where you know that okay, you are going to build it in small iterative fashion. You will always have an output or deliverable to show. You can always go back to the stakeholder and explain them that okay, this is how it looks, are you happy, are you okay, you want a change. So you are always ready to accept change in an agile fashion. In a waterfall, you have to wait till the very end of it. So I believe that your requirements should be clear enough, then only that waterfall model will work. Otherwise it would be a lot of wait time involved. I mean, I have to wait till the end, and obviously BA plays a very crucial role, because he's understanding or knowing that okay, in which direction this particular project is going, how the requirements are going to unfold for this. So it's again a subjective thing, and maybe a team call that how this should be driven.
Okay, normally, but as all of us normally work
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the BA
everybody's
module,
moving
all are
project.
aware that all
Yeah,
requirements are subject to change. So
yeah.
whatever the model BAD, whatever we prepare the document are being changed up by the users, finance or the some other
Yeah, yeah.
operation users very frequently. So so by that particular thing on the kickoff meeting, so whether it would be a feasible key, whether we go with the firstly a water ball and then select upon the sprint and the agile key, okay, how many sprint it would be required or how.
Yeah,
So that would be, I think, so a possibility over there because when we look upon the requirement elicitation, the requirements are only at the macro level. But
correct.
going at the granular levelity and getting that particular objectives and identifying okay, what are the risk items, what are the
Hmm.
particularly the development area would be much more on the higher grounds or the it will be a requirement gathering is on the higher time periods over there.
Correct, correct. I
I
think
think
I
so.
agree with you. I mean, this definitely happens. The requirement keep on changing, and Agile actually helps in this because the show and tells and the demo sessions help. Because you have, I mean, build up a very small feature or functionality of things, and you're able to show that, and there and then you're getting a go no go on that somewhat. That okay, that person is happy, is not happy, and then you know that okay, if a change is required, my efforts are not wasted. I mean, I'm not sitting around till the very end of it to understand this. So I know that obviously I guess 90% of the times we are running in an agile fashion in all the organizations across, I believe, however it is. But yeah, so I just wanted to touch base upon the techniques, and I'll definitely, I mean, explain the role of a BA in an agile fashion as well, because therein the skill set involves breaking down that requirement to such a level that it is a deliverable piece. Then you have to break it down to a user story level. How would you do that? So I guess a lot of BA skill set is required there. But yeah, definitely I'll get there.
Sure. Thanks, Mansi.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question quickly?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much for inviting me or for accepting my request. It's my first time of joining, and I appreciate the work that you're doing, Shipra. I've listened to a lot of your videos, and they've been very helpful. Sorry, recordings. So my question is with regards to the proof of concept. You
Yeah.
mentioned that, Manasi.
Yeah.
What exactly is the role of a BA? So I work in an agile environment, and
Okay.
most of the times when they talk about proof of concept, they usually ask my developers to come up with a POC. So
Correct.
do we really have a role to play in terms in speaking about proof of concept?
Yeah, I think we do have a very crucial role over here, because I've also been working in many of such projects. So what happens is that In POC, what needs to be built is extremely crucial, and BA plays a very important role over here. So, understanding what kind of POC the business or the stakeholders need is very important over here. You can actually list down that, okay, I'll give you an example. For example, I just want to build up a mobile application, and this is a POC for me. Okay, and I need certain 10-15 fields in that, and and I need to enter some data. The customer enters that data, and it should be saved back to the system. This is a very small POC which I want to do. Now, to articulate these requirements exactly, that okay, the POC should suffice this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 particular points, that role is played by a BA. So maybe you are more of a mediator between the stakeholder and the developers. Developers are playing around with the technology aspect of it. That okay, you want a screen, okay, what tech stack I'll use for it, but what exactly needs to be seen, how it should look, what is the wireframe design behind it, if it's a UI change. So all those aspects, I think a business analyst plays a really important role. And again, it depends, but I guess it's more about articulating the correct things across. That's the crucial role a BA plays anywhere.
Okay, so what's the difference between the proof of concept and the actual enhancements that we are doing? Like,
Okay,
what
proof.
exactly is POC?
Okay, POC is basically just to test that, okay, this is an idea which I have. Will it work or will it not work? Okay, so it's
Okay.
about playing around and understanding. And enhancement is I have an existing application which is up and running. I have just got a small amendment to make, maybe a added functionality I want to add on top of it. So that is something which is an enhancement, and POC is something where I'm just playing with an idea. Will it work? If it works, I'll take it ahead and develop a project around it. But enhancement is, I know for sure. I mean, I have a running application with me. I just need to add a additional section to it, or maybe add one more screen to it, and my problem
Okay.
is solved. That's an enhancement. Yeah,
Okay. Thank you very much.
yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks, Azim, for your kind words and for joining our club. I'll,
Thank you.
yeah, let me take an example for POC, right? So let's say
Okay.
the idea out there is flying cars. So right now our cars are not flying, and it is something very new, right? We don't know how we can achieve that dream, right? It's a dream, or it's an idea, but how that idea will work, there is we don't know. So what we do is we do not start building everything from day one, right? We do some testing, we do some POCs. So that's where
Yeah.
proof of concept comes into picture. So we'll maybe test it out on a small robo kind of thing, or a small drone, and then we increase the weight of that, then increase the weight of that, and slowly and slowly we built up on that. If my the base itself, so let's say we are saying flying drones, if the flying drones idea fails, then I cannot move to the flying cars idea, right? I have to find out some other mechanism. So I don't want to invest head on into something when I don't even know whether it will succeed or not. So what we do is we do a POC. The main work of POC is definitely the technical team, because technically only we need to achieve that. How the BA comes into picture is BA have to define, okay, to the technical team, that what my end goal could be, or what my requirements could be. So for a flying car, I should be able to have two passengers or five passengers, or four passengers in it. It should also be able to move on the road. It should fly in the air. It should not go too close to the sun or out of the atmosphere, right? So those kind of requirements, technical team cannot think from a person's perspective. So how the BA will what the BA will do, BA will first
Mm-hmm.
define a persona. So I hope you are aware of the persona concept. So they'll have this pseudo user defined, and then they start thinking from persona's point of view, and then they start jotting down what points we want to arrive at and what points we want to achieve, and then they help technical team with the idea, development, and they keep on bringing new scenarios. Okay, what will happen if there is a sea? How far my flying car will go, what will happen to the fuel, how much fuel capacity I'll need, so those kind of things, right? So whatever
Okay.
technical team has questions, the BA fills those gaps in, and that's the role of a BA
Okay.
in PhD.
Okay. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shipra, I think Arpit has messaged he can't hear anything or something. If you can help him.
Yeah, Arpit, you need to send me a request. Let me say, give you an invite. Or try changing your earphones.
Maybe you can just message
Yeah,
him.
yeah.
Okay. Conscious of time, maybe I'll just move on to the next aspect of it. So once my analysis is done and I know, okay, these are my functional requirements, these are my non-functional requirements, then comes the design phase. Now, design phase is moreover communicating back with the solution architects, the technical designers, or the tech leads in general. They design the solution around on how to achieve or complete this particular functional piece. So it's more of a tech team collaboration role which BA does, where he is liaising between the solution architects, the technical team, and making them understand, okay, this is how the requirement is, or how this should be visualized, so on and so forth. And once this design is completed, we move on to the development part of it, where again BA's role is more of a close coordination amongst the developers, make them understand, okay, what is exactly required, and ensure that it is actually completing or meeting the functional requirements which we have agreed with the stakeholders. So the development phase, the role of a BA is moreover to support the developers in ensuring they understand exactly. At times, what happens is that even if things are documented, they perceive certain things differently, and the stakeholders have interpreted that same particular feature in a different manner, and then that chaos and confusion comes into play. And once after the development, we realize, oh, okay, we have built something wrong. So I think BA plays an important role in the development aspect of it as well. That you need to be clear in your communication. You need to be a very good communicator to pass the things across and make them understand on all these things. So, any questions so far in the design and development aspect of it?
I think that's a clear, Mansi.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. I think I'll just move on to the next aspect. So once my code is developed for that particular feature, I move on to the testing phase. Now in testing phase, the BA role is also more about reviewing the test scenarios or helping the testing team design the test scenarios, that okay, how it should pass for certain positive and negative scenarios. Then there is a concept called user acceptance testing. So BA can drive these acceptance testing pieces as well, where you can define the user acceptance testing scenarios. You can actually coordinate with the business users, make them test these things, and then we ensure that okay, our requirement is perfect. It is actually meeting all the criterias which we had set forward. So there are multiple aspects in it: managing the defects, helping the team to understand the defects, and again that communication clarity is also required for tester. So what the developer has understood, the tester has to understand the same thing, and he has to design the scenarios around the same thing. So everybody should be understanding the same piece, and there should be no chaos and confusions in that. So it's more of a coordination, I would say, but a very close coordination, and you need to take the call that okay, this is going in the right direction or it is not going in a right direction. And until the testing is completed, a BA role could also come into play, where if this is a new application or you're building a completely new feature out of it, at times you need to prepare the user training material. So it's kind of a knowledge base, that okay, how to use this application. You need to train the users that okay, going ahead, you need to use this application in a certain way. There are documentations created around the trainings. So that could also be a role and responsibility. I know it is not every time, but at some times this role could come into play. So any questions so far?
Yeah, and this is the time you will be working on user guides as well.
Yeah, yeah, that user training,
Mhm.
user guides, yeah. Okay, I take the silence as no. So maybe moving ahead, once the testing is completed, I have implemented this entire code base. Now my application is live, it's up and running, everybody is using it. And after this as well, in the maintenance aspect of it, the BA could be a main point of contact, that okay, if a user is requiring help around something, the business analyst could come into play and help the user in the initial days to actually get his or her head around okay how this application is supposed to be used. Then there could be a secondary aspect that okay, we come up with more enhancements to this particular piece. After using it, they have realized that okay, now we want one or two more features, maybe we don't require this particular piece, something like that. So we can get new requirements out of the maintenance phase as well. So it's subjective to each and every organization and team on how a particular project's maintenance aspect of it is done. But yeah, actually, BA plays an important role there as well, because he is very closely aligned or very closely working with the end users. He's also taking the customer feedbacks if it is a customer facing application. So, this is the in general role of a BA across the software development lifecycle in a workflow part of it. I'll be progressing to the agile ways of working and maybe what are the tweaks and changes what a BA is doing in general. But just will take a pause to understand that was it clear enough? Any questions in the current set of it?
Hi, Manasi. I have a question, if I may.
Yeah,
During the testing or UAT, when test cases are created or prepared by the BA,
yeah.
is it always based on, or correct me if I'm wrong, based on requirements? Like, is it extracted based on that, or there are different ways to do it? I'm trying to understand, like, how does a BA create a test case? If you can, like, explain with us, like, a small example, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, so the user acceptance test scenarios or maybe the test cases as well, they should be based on the functional requirements which we have drafted. So I'll take a very, very small example. I have a user interface or an application. I have a sign-in page. I'll just take a sign-in page, okay? So there is a sign-in page. It has two fields, username, password, and there is a button where I can just click in and I can sign in. So this is my functional requirement. Now I have to derive the test cases for it. So my very first test case should be, okay, that button should work as expected. If I'm entering the username and password, when I click on sign in, my username and password should be validated correctly, and the sign in should happen. The second is I need to, there could be a validation feature in it that okay, is the username and password actually filled or it is blank. If it is blank, maybe I'll give some pop-up message that please add in something in the username and password. There could be a minimum length, maximum length criteria around it. So a test case scenario could be around that as well. And what if my username and password is not matching? I mean, it's incorrect, then I should also be getting a message across around that. So that could be one of my test scenario. So when I say user acceptance testing, I guess I'll derive the scenarios in this fashion if it helps.
Yeah, thank you so much for the explanation.
Yeah. Any more questions?
So Mansi, normally we had completed around particularly the SDLC process with respect to its design, development, and particularly the testing scenario.
Yeah.
So now in the between, if suppose like what we do in the banks, when
Yeah.
we get the particular requirement, somebody say suppose after enhancement of particularly the RBI circular or something around it. So
Correct.
what we receive it over there, okay, this is the enhancement that we required. So what we have the basically the process. We actually do follow the agile methodology, but normally what we have that particular I have made one of the process ready over there. So normally what we take that particularly we do expect from the user, the finance user, or it may be the operational user. We take the particularly their RBI submitted returns copy, okay, and their working copy, and there from there we just initiate our base level of analysis. So after getting it into the analysis, we drew up into the system. Okay, the currently if this is being the data, what is being required and what is being available in my production. So if I want to enhance that particular logic over there, so I need to have this X, Y, Z attributes, the particularly the logic, what I need to implement it out, and I need to prepare one Excel over there. Okay, this is the existing one and this is the required one, and I
Okay.
need to fulfill the data that this is the current data in the production and what shall be the expected data. So if 100 is the current data and the expected is the 120, I need
Hmm.
to send across that to the user as a requirement sign off file. So after receiving that particular file, if the user confirms on it, ki, yeah, this is the requirement that I need to have it. So then he gives his confirmation on the requirement sign off, and then we process through the development walkthrough. So because what happens there, you get a benefit over there. You don't get frequently requirement changes over there, because
Yeah.
one time the user has given the requirement sign off, and if he does that particular change, so we expect the new Jira to be created.
Correct.
So that point of the leveling, the process is quite important, because normally in the MNCs, banks, and all such
Yeah.
things, they are well versed with the process. And currently, when we look upon our Indian private banks and all
Yeah.
the public banks, there only we are facing a trouble with the volume of data.
Yeah.
So there process is the pros and cons of with respect to the process over there. Yeah, that's a
Okay. Yeah. So, you want a general advice on how to deal with this?
yeah. If you can just share it within a few 1 minute or 2 minutes time only.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, what is happening is that you're actually following a waterfall process, to be honest, because what you're doing is that you're getting a business need that, okay, that RBI circular has come in and you need to do certain things according to that. Now you have identified the requirement, you have documented that requirement, and now you're going back and taking a sign off as well, that okay, from the user, that okay, this is how it is going to be seen. So you're taking a sign off on the expected data level as well, and this you're documenting, and then you're passing it on to the development team, and then you're completing it. So basically you're working in a waterfall model actually. And if I just want to term it in an agile fashion, what would happen is that, or maybe how this would be converted is that, once this RBI circular comes in, maybe I'll create a placeholder for this particular requirement as a backlog entry in my product backlog. So maybe I'll have a user story around it, or maybe an epic around it, however that organization is dealing with requirements. Okay. So if I just want to tweak it and have it in an agile fashion, I'll have that in my backlog. I'll work on that requirement, or basically the BA would work on it. He would draft the user story that okay, I require so and such a thing, and this is how it would look. This is the acceptance criteria around it. Maybe I'll write it in a agile fashion that from a user story perspective, given a user, I need this so that this will happen. I'll take a sign off on this particular user story from the business user, as you have already taken an approval. In the similar fashion, you're already taking approval, so maybe you'll take the approval on this particular user story. You will align this particular thing to a particular sprint, however you are running the sprints in agile. And then you would do a small show and tell in between to demo it, that okay, this is how it is looking, are you okay? After that, you may do a sprint review as well, that okay, this is the final deliverable out of it. And then eventually you would deploy. So basically you could play it both ways. It all depends on the organization and the team, that okay, what kind of process you want to have. So if you want to convert this into a strict agile way, you could have all these requirements tracked in a Jira in a user story format, then prioritize these requirements, that okay, how, which one needs to go first, what's your team's capacity, and then start picking it up in respective sprints. I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah, actually, I think so. We are working on basically on the agile one only. I think, but the whatever I have specified, I think so. We are working on basically a hybrid type of model.
Exactly, and
The
everybody is doing
partially,
that. Don't
yeah.
worry about that.
That we need
Actually, it's
to
waterfall
actually.
stuffed into an agile way, I would say, and
So
in most
we
of the cases, yeah.
actually we need to have that particular ability that normally we need to change the model depending upon the requirement, depending upon the
Exactly.
user and depending upon the situation what we are facing over
Exactly.
there.
Yeah, but it doesn't happen. It's very rare, and it's
Yeah,
very tough to convince your stakeholders and keep on changing this and keeping it very,
correct, correct. Because we need to
yeah,
adhere with the deliverable timelines also,
exactly,
and we
exactly.
need to adhere. All days are not rosy. We can say over
Yeah.
there.
So
Thanks.
in an
Yeah.
ideal world, you can play it around any which ways, but
Correct, correct.
I feel it's more of a waterfall. I mean, shifted into an agile fashion. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's normally whatever the process you said, raising a Jira
Yeah.
over there, adding it into the backlog, adding into the
Yeah.
sprint, and adding it into the priorities over there, which needs to be
Yeah.
taken up.
Correct.
Means that we are all totally falling from one, like creating a epic to the closing up that particularly ready to release over there. But
Correct.
it's but before that, we have made a strict adherence or the compliance over that. We require these prerequisites. Then only we would be able to move ahead, unless and until,
Hmm.
because what happens normally, user doesn't provide the time which requires to the requirement of the data. Okay, how we need to move ahead, what the logic needs to be placed. The user doesn't provide the full-fledged times over there in the banks and all systems.
Yeah. Correct. Correct. It
So
happens actually. We
yeah,
are
and
in.
what he says, I have raised the Jira. So the deliverable timelines is being lagged by the BA during his analysis. So that BA, because BA gets hardly a 10 to 15% of the total deliverable time, and then
Exactly.
also he need to face such statements over there. So this is like
Yeah.
that.
Actually, I guess it needs to be improvised at the team management level as well. That if
Hmm.
I get something, there should be a turnaround time defined. That okay, if I get something today, this is the max possible I would be able to deliver it, because BA is taking X amount of days, then the developer, I mean, to run it in a scrum, it is taking X amount of days. So maybe at the team level, we should be very strict with all these things, and
Correct.
we should be able to explain this back to the business users. But it may or may not happen with respective teams and organizations. It depends. It completely depends.
Correct. Correct. I
Yeah.
won't spend much of your time because I think you have many of the slides over there. Okay, you can continue. Thanks.
No, but it was a good question. Yeah, thank you. Any more questions on this?
Anyone? I guess not, Mansi.
Okay, great. I think I'll just move on to my last aspect of it is, which is the agile ways of working, or maybe everybody is working in agile fashion in general. So when I say agile, it is basically a change-driven methodology. So when I say change, that it is pretty fast. I'm not much relying on the documentation aspect of it now over here. In waterfall, I was heavily reliant on documentation, or BA had to create those huge documentations were brief enough. So those functional requirement documents, or the non-functional requirement documents, that is not at all required over here. So agile is change driven, it is fast, it actually I mean, it depends upon the collaboration. So it believes that okay, the more we collaborate as a team and we work on things together, the faster it would go through. So now how the documentation translates over here in agile, I would say the requirement elicitation techniques or the requirement gathering techniques still stands the same, but the way you document it over here, or you maybe track over here, changes in agile. So in agile, what will happen is basically you would come up with epics, or would come up with features or user stories. However, it is gathered in organization. It depends, team to team basis. You would have this tracked in Jira or any monitoring tool which is applicable in your organization. And when you create these epics or user stories, you have a product backlog concept. So product backlog is nothing but a list of epics or user stories which my team needs to work on. So it is a high level set of requirements. I need to then again break it into a user story format, that okay, for this particular epic I need four user stories because I have four features to give against it. And then how I would develop these features and eventually implement into production is the way I would take it into agile. So I'll just take an example in general. So here what will happen is that I am supposed to deliver a big piece of project. I take a rough example that I'm building an application from scratch, Now in that application, I know there are 4 to 5 modules which need to be designed and developed. So what I will do is I'll create high level epics out of these modules. I'll devise the high level stories that, okay, for one module I take 4 to 5 stories approximately. This is the high level requirement analysis I have collated into it. Now I have to sit back with the stakeholders. Then there is a product owner over here. Product owner is basically, I would say, the stakeholder, or maybe who is taking the final calls in an agile way of working. At times, the BAs are also playing role of product owner in most of the cases, or more of the cases, because they kind of turn into a subject matter expert when they grow into a certain functionality of it. So basically, you need to sit with the product owner or whoever is the decision maker. You need to understand that, okay, if I want to deliver this project, I need to prioritize my things. I need to understand what's a must have, what's a nice to have, and what's something which I mean I cannot go without. So I'll prioritize it. I'll also sit with the technical team beforehand and understand that, okay, does this require a sequential approach to it? Then maybe I'll have to align my backlog in such a way that if my technical team says that module 1 has to go first, if I have to work on any other modules, then I'll focus all my energy on fixing the module 1 first. Within module 1 as well, I'll divide the user stories in such a fashion that they are small enough, they are deliverable. I'm able to showcase some working model out of it to the stakeholder, take his opinion, go back and change it if required. So that's how this all will translate into an agile fashion. I'm not waiting until the very end of it, until it goes into production to see how it looks. I have regular show and tell sessions within my sprint, that where the developers, testers, the BA, whoever is working in that sprint together, they come together, they display that, okay, this is the working model of it, and then they show it to back to the stakeholder gives an approval, or if a change is required, maybe the BA would come up with a new user story around it, and then we'll move ahead. So in agile, this entire sequential methodology is broken down. We don't have to go A, B, C, like the analysis, then the design, then the dev, then the test. We are directly jumping into the sprints, and based on what our prioritization in the sprint, we are picking up user stories. The user stories are already broken down into such a level that I know that, oh, I have to pick up 2 3 stories. Then maybe the BA also has to get involved in the planning aspect of it along with the scrum master, where they see that, okay, my team capacity is so much, I can just pick 2 stories now for this particular sprint. 2 stories I would pick later. So all this, I guess it's more about estimation, the resource aspect of it, and all these things come into play. Maybe I'll take a pause. That do we want to deep dive into the aspects that, okay, how do we write a user story? How do we maintain a product backlog? Because when I say BA roles and responsibility, it is more about maintaining the product backlog in an agile fashion, drafting the user stories, maintaining the epics, getting the product backlog prioritized, maybe helping the scrum master plan it into individual sprints, so that I can say that, okay, my project would be delivered by this date, or my after 3 months, 4 months, however it is. So these are the BA roles and responsibilities which modify. But at the back of it, we are still coordinating with the developers and testers to make them understand, okay, this is what is required. Then we are also coordinating with the stakeholders to explain that, okay, this, you actually want this, we are taking a sign off on the user story this time and not on the functional requirement document. So these are the various things which would modify in an agile fashion. But maybe I would like to take a pause and understand if someone needs clarity in any space.
Any questions from any? I think we are good, Mansi.
Great. Okay. So I think the difference between waterfall and agile is that, I guess, the underlying roles and responsibilities still remain same. The way we document it, or the way we portray it with the stakeholders, is changing. So in waterfall, I'm focusing on the functional requirement documents. It's pretty document heavy. In agile, I'm working over fixed small set of deliverables. It could be in a user story format at an epic level. I'm trying to break down the requirement at that smallest possible unit or a minimum viable product. That's the term which is used in general. So those are the aspects. I still have to go and help in the user acceptance testing. This could be managed differently in an agile fashion, but this still does happen. I still have to contribute to the user trainings, user guide preparation, etc. So all these roles and responsibilities still remain same, but maybe the way it is executed, it differs. Actually, in some places the BAs are also playing the role of scrum master if we don't have one specific scrum master. Maybe the BAs are also playing the role of product owner, but these are subjective topics. But yeah, that's about it. I think nothing else from my side.
Yeah, thanks, Mansi. Thanks for joining for today. Do we have any questions from anyone?
I have a question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much again. So my question is regarding, when the epics and user stories have been created,
Hmm.
and it is like we need to collaborate with the development team to assign the tasks on
Hmm.
to the various developers, right? Can you clarify about estimates? Like, how do we estimate points? Like I
Okay.
know different organizations have their different patterns, or
Hmm.
how to assign points to different tasks. What should we have in mind when estimating points? How are those points read and interpreted?
Okay, so the this method, I mean this terminology, story point estimation, which you have rightly touched based upon. So story point estimation, there are various methods and means to do it, but I would say the overall crux of it is that I just need to understand from an efforts perspective. For example, if I have a particular user story, which is again, I'll take the same example just to build a screen for sign in. I have two fields, a button, and I have to build in this feature. So maybe I'll go back to the development and testing team and understand from the efforts aspect of it that how much time would you take to build this particular thing. I'll also take the same efforts from a tester that okay, how much effort you would take, and then maybe I'll assign the story points accordingly. You could do the story point estimation going to the subtask level as well, that okay, developers task, testers task, maybe the UAT support task or whatever it is, and just add up to get the story point of it. And generally, I think the Fibonacci series is used to give it a correct number.
Yes.
So my take on it is moreover having the efforts calculated, and that's how I decide that okay, this particular story, the story point is whatever number, and then it helps me prioritize things or maybe take it in a respective sprint based on the efforts of it. Maybe it helps in planning as well, because I know that to get this story or get this story completed, I need so many number of developers and testers. And if I have it, I'll plan it. If I don't have it, I'll wait until I have those people in. So maybe it helps the scrum masters as well in planning and resource allocation.
Okay. So that means, like, is it correct to say that whatever story points that or a particular story point is maintained across various sprints?
Hmm.
Is it is it is it correct to say that?
Uh, can you just
Like,
repeat? Yeah.
so how do I put it now? So assuming assuming we run a 2 week sprint, right?
Yeah.
And we are working with, like, is it like 120 points?
Oh.
Does it mean that 120 points for the entire 2 week sprint is supposed to be maintained across the upcoming sprints? Like, like sprints, the next sprint has to be the same amount of story points, or does
Oh.
it really depend on the amount of work that we have to do for that particular sprint?
Yeah. Actually, it depends
Does it
on
have
the
to be
amount of
uniform?
Yeah. Actually, it has to be newly formed. So, for example, if
Oh,
I'm
okay.
taking a user story of 120 story points in general, and it is a 2 week sprint, that means I know I have those many resources in that sprint. Maybe I'm get taking a very big story in a single sprint, but it is the case that I have those many developers and testers available and I'm trying to complete it. But the second aspect of it is that maybe I could break down that story if it is not able to finish in that particular sprint, and I divide those story points across multiple sprints and not term it as 120 in the first instance. So,
Mhm.
Agile is all about breaking down it to that level that I'm actually able to commit to something and complete it. So, why not just divide it and then complete the work in multiple sprints? Maybe it
Okay.
depends on what's your
Gotcha.
team size and all those things, and how is your scrum team? Is it big enough? Yeah.
Okay. Thank
Uh,
you.
yeah, same. Extending the particularly what Mansi said. So
Yeah.
actually, we are in the banks. Normally, we have that particularly what you said, an example of 120 line
Yeah.
items
Mm-hmm.
over there that we need to complete out within a sprint over there. But
Mm-hmm.
normally, see, we can complete out 120. That depend upon the complexities of each line item, because
Yeah.
Okay.
some line item might be a low, very highly low complexity, but only they can be finished up. Means that we can kill it up in a very soon as a development
Mm-hmm.
and the testing also over there. So that depends upon the complexities of that particular line item. What is the business requirement with respect to that line item? So we can move ahead with that. So I
Okay.
think so. It's not necessary ki you take one two items as a for a one sprint over there, and you take the 100 items for a sprint. It depends all depend upon the what is the complexity of that requirement. Is it a
Yeah.
very
Mm-hmm.
highly because some of the project goes because we have been faced that three line items are there, but three line items we have been facing with that particular we carry it over, spill it over to the 2 to 3 sprints. So
Right.
it gets carry forward over there. So that depends upon it over there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Mansi.
Thanks for contributing. Yeah.
Shipra, I guess normally we have the particularly too many of the audience right now. So in the I think in the next forum, if you can just we can discuss it out. Ki what basically each and every of the BAs we are doing it on the practical mode. So it would help it out because the theoretical okay.
Yeah.
We understand the SDLC process, we understand the agile process, but when it comes to practical, the methodology and the work scenario, work situation, it gets differ out, and we face the many of the challenges. So that would be a requisite, like how that particular BA has faced the challenges and how he has successfully made the process deliver in a particular timeline. So that would be, I think, so interactive sessions would be because currently one or two or three BAs are only interacting, but now we have on the board Mose as well as the Enzyme and the other peoples also. So they can also share their views also on the same. That was only a suggestion from my end, Nilesh here.
Yeah, sure. So we can definitely, continue discussing on the same topic next week. I'll check out with Mansi whether she is available, for the topic other which we can have a discussion in the club. So yeah, that, that's fine.
Yeah,
Uh,
thanks.
Chetan?
Yeah, so I agree with what was discussed. That's what I said. And I have some certification related query, but I'm not sure if I should be asking it now because can I ask? The topic is different. That's
Let's do an open house next week. We can discuss the practical aspects of OBA's involvement in SDLC and take up any other queries as well. Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So let's have an open house next week.
Yeah. Any more questions for me? But it was really, I mean, I enjoyed talking with you all. This was my very first session, but maybe I would like to contribute more in the future as well. And thanks, Shipra, for running this. It's quite a good concept. Yeah. And thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're most welcome, Mansi, anytime. We look forward for people who volunteer. So yeah, just let me know and we'll set up a session. Yeah, and I'll check out your availability next week as well. if you can make yourself available, that will be good to have you there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a really good session. So thanks for sharing the insights.
Yeah, thanks, Shipra. And I would like to have my feedback as well. I mean, if you people enjoyed it, it was good. I mean, it was understandable. So yeah, maybe I could work upon those points accordingly in my future sessions. But yeah, thanks a lot, everyone. And yeah, thank you. Bye.
Yeah, thanks. Gundu?
Hi everyone. So Mansi, I really enjoyed your session because it's been a long time I joined into the club. It's been like I have taken a long break really. So just I lost the that that hook from the D atmosphere. So indeed, joining this session finally I could able to first of all, am I audible?
Yes, yeah.
Hello. Wonderful, great.
Yes, you.
So I've been not taking much. So, Manasi, your session really indeed helped me a lot. It it just brushed my skill set again. You just very well have explained the complete SDLC flow in BA atmosphere, and also you have just laid down the waterfall model way of working and agile way of working, and there are so many things which I really I could able to brush up my skill set. And thank you so much, Mansi, for your time, taking out your time and just telling it all. And also thanks to Shipra because you're doing a phenomenal job because no one does for free this thing kind of thing. And you are helping many of the individuals like me. And thank you, and more power to you. I wish you could conduct more session like this every weekend. So I think I could able to contribute myself, one day as a speaker. um, yes, down the line it was like
Yeah,
very interactive session, and I enjoyed the session overall. And thank you so much, Chitra.
thanks.
Yeah, and Mansi.
Yeah, thanks for your kind words. This kind of feedback, keeps us motivated,
Yeah.
and that's the only reason we are going on. This is we are running the sessions from last 4 years now.
Oh.
So this is our fourth, and we conduct a session on Saturday every week. Um, so January till Diwali season, right? September, October, we run the sessions. Then we take a three months break, and then we reconvene again. So please do continue joining in on daily basis, because that's what keeps the club running, and more people gets the benefit out of it. So and thanks for your kind words.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shipra, and I'll be make sure my active participation going forward.
Yeah, thank you. I think we are good to close the session now. We'll reconvene again next week as an open house. We'll take up any queries on certifications or more practical examples if any, in case anyone wants, and we can discuss the topics that we discussed today or any other topics. So it will keep it as an open house. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Shikha.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thanks all for joining.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye bye.